I tell you solemnly, insofar as you neglected to do this to one of the least of these, you neglected to do it to me. And they will go away to eternal punishment, and the virtuous to eternal life. Words not at all PC, and will be glossed over by most commentators, I assure you, on this Sunday. After all, we have grown up, and we can do without hell, can't we? I remember hearing this years ago. There was some bishop who said he didn't believe in hell, and someone muttered, "He'll believe in it when he gets there." We don't have the last word, my friends, and the most noisy are sometimes demonstrating their weak position. It's interesting to observe what's going on right now in America. Who is getting very loud and violent? It might be a sign that they're uncomfortable inside themselves. If we live under the aegis of the High King, we have something of his kingdom, which is described in the preface that we will sing in a minute. It gives the characteristics: peace, and on it goes, gentleness. A Christian family has something of that. A good monastery also allows Christ to reign even in the atmosphere. Now, if, on the other hand, we serve another master, it's that master that we will resemble. Observe a person's face. Read. Look into the eyes, the windows of the soul. Who is he serving? Is there peace deep down? When we give off something of the Lord's kindness, and this applies to everyone here, from the tiniest to the eldest, is it not true that there is a reaction? It's rather the same principle as we have in the jet engine. You know how a jet engine works, don't you? It's not the same as a propeller which pulls, which works on the air physically. It's the basic physical principle that one thrust in one direction has a corresponding counter thrust in the other, and it pushes itself off the ground at high velocity using massive amounts of energy in a short time. It was an interesting discovery, all made during the war. Hitler used it first. You know, by the way, that Hitler worked on these things, and they used that principle to get eventually to the moon. That's another story. Well, it's the same with the soul. You give off a thrust of positivity and goodness and kindness, what will you find in your soul? A reaction coming back of peace and warmth. I have done good, I have consoled, and I feel warm. Do the opposite, as old Nick does all the time, and you have his discomfort in your soul, and you can't get away from it. All you can do is try to avoid it. So, it's in our own interest as well to serve the right side. There is an interesting philosopher in the English body of literature, long extinguished, he died in the 1960s, C.S. Lewis, who described himself as the most dismayed convert in Christendom. He'd fought all his life against Christianity, but he couldn't avoid it. And he yielded to the King of Kings. Although he has very Catholic concepts, he remained an Anglican where he was brought up. But he has a very sharp mind. When my brother was studying in Oxford, and it was my birthday, he wandered into one of the big bookstores there in the main street of Oxford and fidgeted around some books that for me was mad on religion at the time, and one of them he got hold of was C.S. Lewis' Mere Christianity. So I read it from end to end at least once, and it hit me. This is pure truth, scientific philosophy, thought, and a brilliant mind indicating you can't get away from it. Oh, that's interesting. So I don't have to be afraid of my schoolmates anymore. I know both sides of the equation. And here we are, how you think. Teach yourself to think. And by the way, when you think, you don't get angry. You just show the truth. And if the person doesn't want to see the truth, he'll get angry. But the problem is there. Serenity is a great persuader, you know. Keep calm and show you know the answer to the answer. Well, he had this to say, amongst many other things. Look around the planet. What will you find? Souls of the same structure who all know something. They have inside them a law which they can't avoid, and it's called the conscience. And it all, throughout the universe, has this basic code, which is the same, which indicates, therefore, that this is a law written in the soul by its maker. Now, if you don't believe what I'm saying, observe all the cultures of the world. Is it not true that every single human being knows in the depths of its being that certain things are right and certain things are wrong and can't get away from it? What happens, and it's true for children as well, you do something naughty and what will happen? You know deep down that there's a discomfort there, a kind of chemical reaction. It hurts. Ouch. Now, in the Catholic Church, we have this great remedy to get that cleansed. And people who come out of confession feel a great healing and warmth again. And also they're given a grace not to want to go there again, to that dark area. I've seen so many tears and so many reactions after absolution. We have that power in the Church which our brethren don't have. I mean, Protestants who have rejected the whole sacramental system. It's hugely consoling when we can say in the name of Christ what he said to that woman, go in peace. But there is also the hint, and do not sin again. That bit, by the way, has to follow. We can't have our cake and eat it. It's an abuse of grace not to then be under the authority of the king and to use him as a slot machine, automatic absolution. That leads to something else, hardening of the heart, cancer. When the conscience becomes grimy and dull, and after a while hardly reacts at all, it manages to cloud it out. And by the way, it's easy to do. Noise, fidgets, gadgets. Don't be in yourself, don't face yourself for one moment. Even in bed, put on something which cancels it. A smartphone will do. Not a moment to face the truth. This week we had the feast of somebody who lived this gospel. It was a very noble woman, Elizabeth of Hungary, daughter of a king, and with huge responsibility with her husband over a large area, Thuringia. She lost her husband and gave herself to the Lord as a Franciscan tertiary. She gave all her wealth to the poor, and she created hospitals and places where the most abandoned could be served, rather like Mother Teresa of Calcutta. Something similar happened in the life of the two. Mother Teresa of Calcutta taught her sisters to treat the flesh of those poor beggars that they were picking up off the streets of Calcutta with the same honour and reverence and respect that the priest gives to the sacred species of the altar. It's the same Christ in a different form. And one day they took a picture of her by chance where she was working in the dark, and when they developed it, there was a miraculous light which lit her up in the picture. Well, centuries ago, and by the 1300s, Elizabeth of Hungary was coming back from washing these poor beggars and sick people. And there was a sister with her, and the sister said to her, "Mother, put a veil over your face. You're shining like the sun. And others picked it up too, that she would shine like the sun, especially when she'd been close to these poor. And she said, "We've truly met the Lord today." And by that, she ministered to him directly in these poor ones. In reverse, and this applies to each one from top to bottom, cause hurt today, and you'll cause hurt to the Lord and to yourself. And remember, words that come out are not just cancelled and forgotten. There's no cancel button on that computer. It comes back on our copybook. When we are on the other side, it will all come back. If you don't believe me, look at these YouTubes of people who have gone into the beyond in near death and come back, and they have seen things, e.g. they start to see their whole life, things they'd completely forgotten. Howard Storm, who's now a minister, had a complete U-turn, and he was shown this as he saw his whole life in the beyond. He wasn't a believer, he wasn't anything. He saw things which he'd completely forgotten about, and as it was coming to some point, well, this is an important bit now, I got that match, I really worked hard for that one, and no, that was of no importance. But out of the blue came this scene he'd forgotten about altogether. It was when he had been good to a handicapped boy in his school, helping him to do well in what he could. And that had weighed the balance an awful lot, a thing he'd forgotten about. But the Lord hadn't, because it was done to him. You parents, if you're looking for something interesting for your children some sunny day, which happens now and again in Ireland, there's a place you can go to not far from here which will teach them everything in very graphic form. In days of old, when knights were bold and people couldn't read, it was done for them in sculpture and stained glass windows. Not far from here we have an ancient monastery, now in ruins, which lost its importance after they founded Mellifont, by the way. They're both close to each other. Well, this one goes back to the Celtic period, as does Duleek here. And by the way, here in Duleek also we've got two Celtic crosses going right back. Well, there you've got this very high cross, the cross of St. Murdoch. It's a massive one, close to the entrance to the old monastery. Now, you children, you might have to stand on Daddy's back to get there, on his shoulders, but you might just about see it. If you look carefully, you will see there signs of what's going on in the beyond. It's a pulpit, remember, they're preaching to the poor who can't read. This is what's awaiting you. And what's there, amongst many other things? You have the scales. The scales. And in it you have a naked soul, a bit worried. Which way is this going to go? There's a demon at one end, an angel at the other, and they're all having a battle, and all eternity is ahead. Will you go up or down? Now there, my friends, is the truth. And it could be just one little word or act like that could tip the balance forevermore for those who are at risk of this other place, of which one cannot speak, because it's never PC.